Hello and welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, slightly later than advertised because the old coronavirus has shut down some of the things that we do here at Talk Radio, but they can't shut down Plank of the Week, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by a previous incumbent who is, of course, Andre Walker, Talk Radio's very own crazy man from the right wing, and of course we've somehow managed to get a lefty in as well this week. Dave Chawner's here, comedian. So Dave, give us your first nominee.
So I think my nominee, by popular demand, is Richard Branson.
Yes,
of course.
Oh, I think so.
People haven't caught this story. They're basically this week he asked his 8,500 workers to take 3 months of unpaid leave. I mean, Gary Neville came out yesterday and said that he would sort of be paying all of his staff. There's going to be no redundancies. The hotels can be used for NHS staff. Richard Branson, who's worth over 4.1 billion.
I mean, even Roman Abramovich, the well-known owner of Chelsea Football Club, who's not even allowed back into the country, offered up his hotel down at Stamford Bridge for the NHS as well. I mean, Branson, also, just about a week before that, had he not gone to the government and asked for £7.5 billion?
£7.5 billion. He sued the NHS for £2 million before. Let's not forget that.
And it's a real piece of work, isn't he?
Yeah, I think we use Necker Island as a nuclear testing facility after this.
Well, somebody already tried to set fire to it. But I mean, unfortunately, Kate Winslet was there at the time, and somebody carried her out of the villa that she was staying in. It was like a scene from Titanic.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and then jumped on a piece of hoarding and sailed off into the dust. And then it's like, I love you so much, Jack.
Yeah,
there you go. Get off that. Someone needs to survive.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have any trouble at all getting Richard Branson into the top 3. I think this week.
Well, based on your Twitter, the amount of people that was the number one, and that's who I was going to go for anyway. There's a lot of anger.
There is.
I think this brings out the best and the worst in people, and he's shown his absolute, and a Knight of the Realm, let's not forget as well. I think take that off him straight away.
He is a universally hated person, I think, even before this.
Do you remember when he used to be liked? Like when he appeared on the Only Fools and Horses Christmas special, and people actually liked him.
Well, do you know, it's funny, because I'm old enough to remember going to the first ever Virgin Records record shop, which was in Notting Hill Gate.
Oh, really?
And he actually opened it, and it was before he even had signed up Mike Oldfield, who did Tubular Bells, which was where he made all his money from, because that was the album that just basically made his. I mean, he was pretty wealthy anyway, I think, because he came from quite a reasonably good background. I'm pretty sure when I was at school, and I used to go to school down the road in Holland Park, and I'm pretty sure I used to go to the record shop, and he used to be in there. You know, he used to actually be behind the counter.
Didn't they have like beanbags and stuff in there?
No. We didn't have any of that then. It's just, I mean, we're talking about sort of late 70s.
Somebody told me.
It actually had records in a record shop.
Yeah, because you were allowed to listen to them in the shops, weren't you?
Yeah.
Somebody told me that if he had not set up the Virgin Group, he would still be one of the richest people in the country, but it would be within the thousands rather than the dozens.
I mean, people have said, actually, because he doesn't wholly own any of the businesses that he puts his name to, it's not really his fault that all these people have been told to take time off. But I'm sure he could do something about it if he wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, remember, it's a brand that he personally owns.
Yeah.
I mean, he can have a go at them and say, look, you know, you've broken the terms. Because there's always, within all of these contracts, there's if you embarrass the brand, you can have it taken off you.
Well, do you know the story of Absolute Radio is that it was supposed to be Virgin Radio. They bought the brand name. And at the very last minute, I'm told, and this is one of those apocryphal business stories from the radio business, Branson walked into the meeting at the end of the as they were about to sign the deal, and demanded an extra £500,000 for the use of the Virgin name, which they weren't expecting. And they basically went, no, we're not paying you that. So he said, well, you can't have it then. So that's how they named it Absolute.
But all of these are apocryphal stories. Like I've read so many of them. The best one was apparently when he sold Virgin Records for £1 billion. Right. He was sitting there crying, and the story said because he was so sad, it was letting him go. It's like, no, he just earned £1 billion. I think that's probably why he's
crying. The other story,
crying.
which is a true story because he's told it himself, is that apparently he claims his wife is allergic to his sperm. I'm not joking. Anyway, I think he's a very good nomination for number 1. What's your first one?
My one is Winnie the Flu, President Xi Jinping.
Winnie the Flu.
President Xi Jinping of China, who, look, it is no one's fault that a disease comes about.
Right.
But remember, this is SARS-2.
Yes.
In 2003, the SARS outbreak, we were told that Chinese wet markets were dangerous. Remember, ordinary Chinese people don't eat wildlife.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Right.
This is members of the Chinese Communist Party. First of all, the Chinese Communist Party didn't outlaw this practice.
Yeah.
Secondly, they have covered up the extent to which this has been a problem. Remember, yesterday, they were saying that there'd been no new cases of coronavirus or SARS-2 in the country apart from foreigners. in the country of 1 billion people.
Yeah.
Really, this is China's Chernobyl. And I don't agree with Donald Trump by saying it's the Chinese virus.
Right.
It's the Chinese Communist Party's virus.
Yeah,
and I
because a lot of
genuinely
the
think they should be held
people who
responsible.
eat that sort of weird stuff, they eat it because they think it has some kind of special powers. It's
Yeah.
like the reason they have rhino horn, which apparently is some kind of cure for impotence, according to
Yeah.
Chinese.
And tiger penis.
Well, if you say so.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that one, but
I have actually.
supposedly, they eat these weird animals because they think they have special powers, or it gives them special powers. So it's a very weird practice.
And we British people caused the BSE outbreak, but always remember, practices have been changed.
Yeah.
A lot of meat was condemned.
Yes.
I
remember those stacks of burning cows. And they just had piled everything up.
Safety was improved.
Yeah.
After SARS won, the Chinese government did absolutely nothing. And the only reason that we were able to contain SARS won was because China was far less connected to the international economy in those days.
Right.
Everybody knew this was going to happen. It's almost like Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it was going to happen. And when it did, the instinct of this man was to attempt to protect the reputation of the Chinese Communist Party rather than save people.
And the reason it
millions
became
of people will die
so
as a result.
viral so quickly was because of the numbers of Chinese people who now travel around the world. Quite rightly, they've suddenly broken out of what was their kind of, sort of herd mentality, but they didn't go anywhere. They didn't have any money to go anywhere.
Yes.
Now suddenly you've got thousands and thousands of Chinese people getting on planes and flying all over the world.
I'm going to say coronavirus or COVID-19 would not have happened in a Western democratic state.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with that same theme because it's difficult to avoid. It's the one story that we've all been talking about all week. I'm going with Jessica Seymour. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her second name. She's a QC. She is the sort of female equivalent of Jolyon Moron, who makes it onto this show quite often. She's very lefty. She used to work for the European Council on something or other. God. She tweets constantly about the EU. She was, of course, a Remainer, as you might expect. But she's now taken to sort of, attacking people at random. And some of these barristers are so thick.
They're nutters,
you actually go,
aren't they?
I can't believe you're actually a qualified lawyer. But she's a very expensively paid qualified lawyer, works for Matrix Chambers, and is a human rights lawyer apart from anything else. She actually tweeted on a Talk Radio. Talk Radio put out a clip from my show last week when I was talking to a guy called the Coconut Cabbie, who's a bit of a legendary guy on phone-in shows, right? He talks about all sorts of things. We were arguing about the coronavirus, and he was saying I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And we were basically having a light-hearted conversation about the fact that it's not any more dangerous than the flu and all of this, right? She basically demanded that Talk Radio take the tweet down because people's lives would be at risk if they continued to let it go out, and people could continue to see that this was something that nobody was taking seriously at Talk Radio. She actually said people will die as a result of this.
But Mike, part of the problem here, and I've said this the last time I was on your show, this whole thing about QC.
Yes.
What we do is we take people who are in a bubble at the Inns of Court in London,
Yes.
and we glorify them. They are not counsellors to the Queen at all.
Right.
They are not personal advisors to the Queen.
No.
What they are, it's basically a way of
pedants.
It's trademarking yourself so you can put your fees up massively.
Yeah.
2 million a year, 3 million a year,
Yeah.
4 million a year. It's absolutely crazy. I think that this.
Well, look at Moron. I mean, this guy's a tax lawyer. That's all he is.
Yes.
You wouldn't go to him for anything else other than to try and get off some kind of tax.
Well, we should-
Well, I think I
need to do-
would. I'd go to him now to get rid of foxes.
Get rid of
you know what I
foxes.
mean?
Yeah, that's
What we-
true.
what we
I
need
don't
to-
know if Jessica has a bat of any kind.
what we need to what we need to do is we need to change the system. So if you do not personally advise the Queen, you are not a QC.
No,
Get
exactly.
rid of it,
Right.
because all it is a way of ripping off the public
Yeah.
and making them extraordinarily arrogant.
Well, when you see her kind of CV and the places that she's worked, it's all you could predict precisely where they all are. It's all the European Council, this, United
it's all
Nations,
taxpayers'
United
money.
Nations, that, she works for some human rights organisation. She helps to draft bills which are about human rights and about the protection of human rights.
Yeah.
And it's all frankly crap. To be honest,
what it is it's all taxpayer funded. Even when you hear about, I don't want to single out anybody in particular, but even when you hear about tax lawyers, you dig down and they're tax lawyers for charities and left-wing cause groups and all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
they are not the experienced business people.
And they're
they
all
claim
fellow
to be.
travellers. They're all in the same boat. They're all working for the same people. They're all taking the same shilling from the same organisation.
And it's all taxpayers' money.
Absolutely disgraceful.
In the end.
So she should button it, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. Who's your second nominee, Dave?
Second nominee, I think think you'll quite like this.
Yeah.
Piers Corbyn.
Piers Corbyn.
Oh.
Jeremy Corbyn's brother. Now,
Yeah.
if you didn't catch a story earlier on this week, he said that people should refuse the COVID-19 vaccine because it's an attempt to cull the world's
So
population.
he's a bit of an anti-vaxxer now, is he?
He is an anti-vaxxer. I just think, like, what an amazing... I love conspiracy. Because there is a conspiracy theory that AIDS was created by the American government to kill black and gay people.
Yeah, yeah.
And my point was, they've already got the police doing that. Why would they need anything else? So, I mean, I don't see that. But I love conspiracy theories.
Piers
like
Corbyn
this.
is an interesting character because we used to get him in quite a lot on my show just because he talks a lot of sense about the climate because he's not one of those people that believes in all this climate change nonsense, right? And he actually says that carbon is not something that you need to get rid of. It's something that actually you need to use for growth. But apart from that, everything else he says is complete rubbish.
But which one of the brothers is the bigger nutter? Because I'll tell you one thing, as a genuine thing, you know, was it Steve Bannon saying that on your show, elections have consequences?
Yes, that's exactly what he said.
Elections have consequences.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Jeremy Corbyn was the Prime Minister now,
Oh my God.
sending a strongly worded note to the coronavirus
Yes.
to ask them to do something?
Right. Well, presumably he wouldn't mind the coronavirus if it came from China. He'd only not like it if it came from America.
He'd be concerned that we were abusing and killing migrant workers,
Yes,
wouldn't we?
exactly right. I mean, I totally agree with you about Piers Corbyn because I saw that tweet that he put out and I just thought, what on earth do you think people are going to say about that?
Oh, huge. I mean,
and to be honest, partly because of the kind of craziness of the guy, we've stopped using him now because even though his message on climate change was actually, we've found other people who are actually more credible.
But also, isn't there?
He's incredibly scruffy as well.
I just thought.
Which is not necessarily.
That's your biggest problem.
No, but I mean, scruffy kind of in a way which is quite unpleasant.
But isn't
if you're
right.
sitting next to him, you're kind of going.
But don't
Really?
I mean, I hate to bring it back to Jeremy Corbyn again, but when you look at Piers
really.
Corbyn, isn't it very clear that this is a family of overprivileged, eccentric
Scruffy
lunatics?
people.
Yeah, basically people who are rich enough to have crazed views.
Yes,
Well,
and
like
they can
Boris
get away with
Johnson.
it. And they can get away with it because, of course, he's also a supporter of his own brother's Labour Party, and he makes no secret of that.
Yes.
In fact, the last time I spoke to him, I think I did him on the off-air show, and he predicted that Labour would win the election. Which is another thing he got wrong.
I'm not being funny. You know, if my brother was the leader of the Labour Party,
I was going to say.
You know, you've got to be.
I was going to say that, but then
Well, hang
both.
on. Surely there's a point of credibility. I don't care who your brother is. If your brother is going to do something which is going to
Yeah,
make
but
him
just
look
think
a
about how
complete idiot.
awkward Christmas is going to be, innit?
I think it's pretty. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't think Jeremy Corbyn has a good time doing anything.
Look, I'll be honest with you. My preferences for Prime Minister, as everybody knows, was Boris Johnson number 1, Nigel Farage number 2.
Yeah.
Had my brother been in the running, that order would have changed.
Really? Well, you would have put him ahead of Boris Johnson.
Yeah, I think
You've
so.
got to.
Why?
You've got
You
to.
people are sick. The problem with you lot, right, is that you've got too much loyalty to the wrong people. You can't
to
be
your own
loyal
family?
to. Yeah, but if my sister was running for president of the United States of America, I wouldn't support her.
Mind you, the other thing is,
chance.
You know, you were saying about privileged people who
She'd
have
make a
crazed
hell of a
political
mess of that.
views. You know, you were saying about privileged people with crazed political views come to my parents' house, right? Believe me, there's not a left winger.
Yes.
There's
All
not
right.
a left winger in
You
that
say
house.
that because actually Piers Corbyn blames Bill Gates. He blames all of this on him. He said that Bill Gates and George Soros have created the vaccine to try and cull the population.
I'm not being funny. Look, whenever the words English common law or George Soros come out of somebody's mouth, it means they're a nutter.
It's time to run for the hills.
The thing that gets me wrong is like Bill Gates has been working on antivirus software for years. So it's maybe just one big mistake.
Well,
you know
exactly
what I mean?
right. I mean, you know, it's easy mistakes to make. After all, number 2 for you.
Number 2 for me, and I say this as a proud Freemason,
Yes.
is Jeremy Vine.
Ah, yes.
I'm on his programme tomorrow. He wants to ban handshaking permanently.
What a
and we can't have
completely
that.
odd thing to say.
Handshaking is a great British tradition.
He put out, I mean, he's another one that does some very weird things on Twitter, Jeremy Vine. I don't know whether it's because he gets all sort of, you know, polluted when he's cycling around London and he gets home and his brain's kind of addled with all the smoke that he's been
has a
taking.
couple of sniffers.
Or he's had a couple of sniffers, I don't know. But he came out with this bizarre tweet where he went, oh, maybe we're going to learn a few things from this coronavirus. One good thing is let's just do away with the handshaking altogether because it's such a ridiculous,
But the only
ridiculous sort of tradition.
the only person I'm aware of, apart from probably Howard Tuesday, not the one who works for Talk Radio.
What you mean the recluse or the one that built that big plane?
Yeah, the only other person that I'm aware of who wanted to abolish handshakes was Adolf Hitler. And I'll tell you one thing about Hitler.
He was a madman for sort of cleaning.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but apparently he was a real freak about it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe about Adolf Hitler, just a side story. He did
just have a side story about
I
Adolf
quite
Hitler.
like that as an epithet. Like, just as a side about
Adolf
Adolf
Hitler
Hitler.
can't make thanks list, by the way, because he's not alive anymore.
No, he cut his teeth in the First World War, where conditions were pretty awful.
Wasn't he a corporal or something?
But yeah, absolutely. But anyway, Jeremy Vine and Adolf Hitler both dislike handshaking, and that is all the evidence you need.
And also, you could probably tell if Adolf Hitler was resurrected in some way, Channel 5 would give him a show. So he would be on the same network as Jeremy Vine. Late night with Adolf Hitler.
It wouldn't be anything weighty and political. It'd be like cooking in prison or something like
that. Afternoons with Adolf. Afternoons with Adolf. Jawohl.
Listen, we've just given them an idea.
Welcome to my show.
I'm sticking with the all-female cast this week, I think, because I'm going to go secondary for Carol Cadwallader, who remarkably has not made the plank list yet since January, which is quite astonishing, because normally speaking, you would have her on every single week. Yes. She was suffering from her sort of Brexit derangement syndrome, which she's now, of course, over completely. She's now taken to kind of throwing insults around about other things, and this week she decided to somehow compare what the government was doing about coronavirus to the Cambridge Analytica cover-up. And really? She basically made the accusation somehow that Aaron Banks was somehow involved in all of this. And I just thought to myself, have you lost the plot? And then, of course, it was a very stupid question to ask, because clearly she has lost the plot. And she's another one who's come at me a couple of times on Twitter, basically saying that I've said something horrendous and ghastly. She spends her entire life libeling people and not being done for it.
But I'll tell you what's crazy. I saw that big spider's web of, people who work together.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't named on it, sadly. But at one point, she took to Twitter going, the reason why you used to work for Breitbart is because it was owned by what's his name, Robert Mercer.
Yeah.
And your flatmate was his lawyer.
Right.
Yes, that is the reason I work there.
Yes.
Right. A
remarkable piece of journalistic endeavour.
In fact, all of this is this person knows this person.
Yeah.
Yes, it is true that people know each other.
Right. And because they know each other, sometimes they give each other jobs.
That's right.
How strange is that?
So when Rebecca Mercer said to Matt Richardson, "Can you think of anybody to work at Breitbart?" He goes, "Yes, my flatmate." now, how that's a surprise.
Yeah, I mean,
to Carol Codswallop.
And of course,
I really don't.
Of course, things don't work like that at The Observer, of course. I mean, that's how they all get jobs. That's how they all look after each other.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Right.
So we're we're number 3 already. What's your third one?
I'm really worried about this one because this is contentious. I don't want to use the kind of global virus crisis as a problem, but I do think that Boris hasn't actually come out for he's come out for people with mortgages.
And it might surprise you to know that Boris has actually made this list before.
Really?
When we had some other lefty scumbag
so it's only the communists
by mistake. We let a lefty in by mistake.
He's critical of the British Prime Minister, not the President of China.
No, that's
all you have to know morally about him.
Yeah, absolutely right. So why particularly are you putting Boris in?
So, I mean, look, I don't think it's time for political point scoring, but
I'm not being funny, Chawner. Keep this quick because he's not going to make the final list. I just wouldn't.
Well, what you should know, though, because you don't know the rules here, is that every single person that we nominate makes it into the top 10 of the week. So, I mean, whoever you mention does get a place. They may not be at the top. Well, I carry one over. It's a very complicated process. Okay. I carry one over at random from the previous week.
Is it at random?
Well, it's at my behest, really.
Right.
So it's completely undemocratic, and it's just down to me.
Yeah.
And I think
much like China.
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. So
So 25 million homes in this country are rented. That's 20% of the population live in rented accommodation. There's actually been no help or support for them so
far. Bizarrely, one of them's Downing Street. You think he would be a bit more aware,
exactly.
Does he pay rent? No, he doesn't.
Probably not. No.
Although I bet he gets taxed on it because it's a benefit in kind, isn't it?
It is.
Under the Inland
Revenue
Revenue
Scheme. He certainly should get taxed.
But I thought it was actually gifted to the job role, not to him.
Yeah, it might be grace and favour, so he may
not.
Well, no,
you need to include them in the tax. It's like the Church of England when they go, well, we should be all paying more tax for poor people.
Yeah.
Oh, you're tax exempt.
Yes.
Right.
That's all right for the Archbishop of Canterbury.
How about when we say we should all pay more tax? That includes you.
Yeah. Certainly pulling up the drawbridge.
Yeah. But also, the self-employed, you've got the statutory sick pay of £95 a week. I don't think people can live on that at the moment.
I don't think they can, but I mean, I suppose it's difficult, isn't it? Because I've been hearing from an awful lot of people this week who have been saying they run businesses and they don't qualify for any of these handouts because either they're not rateable or, they pay their sales people in a different way, or they're not, their business isn't worth as much, so it doesn't get the uplift. There's an awful lot of people falling through the cracks here.
This is it. There's 5 million people in this country that are self-employed. So I think being reasonable, the renters and the self-employed are absolutely screwed, and they're the biggest losers at the moment.
And also, of course, self-employed people find it hard to get mortgages. They are disproportionately renters.
Yes.
And therefore, there's a double whammy. I saw a Conservative MP on the TV, Andrew Griffiths. There's two of them, and I can't remember. He's not the Burton-on-Trent one.
Okay.
The other one, who used to be the boss of Sky Television, he said, well, when we give mortgage holidays to landlords, presumably they will want to pass that on.
Yeah.
No, they won't.
No, they won't. Well,
Right,
again, it depends. If you are given a mortgage holiday, that's all very well. But if, for example, your tenant doesn't pay you and you need that tenant to pay you in order to pay the mortgage, what are you going to do then? They can't. They say that you can't evict them. So actually, as much as I'm not by any means saying that all landlords are nice people, but some of them are, and some of them have only got one or two places they rent out, and they need that rental money in order to carry on.
And also, like, being reasonable. I know, like, all of the rent, sort of actually doesn't go on the mortgage. It's like, for example, our white goods are included. They go to the upkeep of them. So I think it's a reasonable halfway house of, like, landlords still need money, but also renters still need a break.
The difficulty, though, with all of this is that nobody's ever seen anything like this. And
no.
So nobody really knows how much money is going to be required. And I mean, for example, I'm hearing a lot of people saying we're just not paying VAT anymore. You can forget about it. Just not giving the government any money whatsoever until such time as they come crawling for it.
Tim Martin from Wetherspoons made the point that every year the hospitality industry pays £120 billion in tax. You can forget about that. There's no way they're going to make enough money to bother paying any taxes. It's not. There's going to be no profits within the business. I mean, you might get VAT, but the government has got to accept. Sorry, we have got to accept as a country that our government is now effectively bankrupt by this.
Yes.
And it's just like
I'm glad to see that we three did our bit, though, on Tuesday night to try and completely manage to put the coffers of that telephone exchange place right for the rest of the month.
I checked my bank balance afterwards, and it was not a happy morning, to be honest.
There was a lot of money going over the accounts.
I think so. I spent over £100 on those. Yeah, I bet you did as well.
I don't know. I haven't even looked.
So basically,
I just put it on the phone now. It's terrible.
It's true.
There was a time you'd go out with a couple of £100 and you'd go, blimey, I must have spent £100. Now I have no
not
idea.
real money.
I literally have no idea.
Let's be absolutely clear. The reason we were so languid the other night was because we had a £300 alcohol binge session down at a local pub.
Exactly right. But the only reason it happened was because of the situation we find ourselves in. So we maybe can claim it back in some way against tax.
Also,
because we were supposed to be doing Plank of the Week, but we couldn't find Chuck, who was lying under a bus somewhere from wherever he had been from the other night. We couldn't get hold of him for about 7 hours, and when he finally popped up, he said he couldn't do it.
Yes.
Sorry, Chuck.
And also, I suspect the reason that us three are not ill with coronavirus is because we've been using alcohol sanitizer.
We're poisoned. Yeah, we've been absolutely poisoned. Right. So my third man is a man this time. It's going to be Sadiq Khan again. I've had him in before. I had him in the last time. I can't remember what the last time I had him in for, but this time I'm putting him in because until 2 days ago I was still using the tube to get around London until I turned up only to discover that he had changed, because it's a bit quieter, the entire train timetable to go to weekend running, which meant that basically the trains were only running every 7 minutes instead of every 2 minutes. So, of course, when I got on it, it was absolutely rammed. So we're all standing there, supposedly trying to stay separate.
Self-isolating.
Supposedly self-isolating, standing a metre away from everybody. And it was like that. And you were right up against people, like it would normally be in a normal rush hour, because the trains were only running every 7 minutes. I mean, a colossally stupid thing to do. He also hasn't yet, despite the fact that Sean Bailey's asked him to do it, he hasn't cut off the congestion charge, which is what he should be doing, so that more people can drive into work if they have to work in central London, because a lot of people have to go to work.
But he will now do what he always does, which is when the coronavirus is worse in London as a result of there being fewer underground trains, he will blame the government in some way, shape or form.
Oh, yeah.
What Sadiq Khan is terrible at is being Mayor of London.
Yeah.
What he is brilliant at is shifting blame.
Oh, he's very good at shifting blame. He's also quite good at getting his nose into things which don't concern him, like international politics.
Absolutely.
And, foreign affairs and what he likes to say about Donald Trump. But he's a total plank. And in fact, he won Plank of the Month in February. He's well on his way to doing it in March as well. Your final man?
My final one, and do you know, I genuinely thought that he was going to pick him because it's Piers Morgan, not Piers Corbyn.
Piers, for one.
Look, I'm just going to make this quick. Piers Morgan is a brilliant, funny, provocative commentator and presenter. He has changed morning television in quite a positive way. I absolutely love him to bits, but he's just gone mad.
He's gone over
recently.
the edge this week, hasn't he? He's
It's
just kind of
strange.
gone very strange. Also, I know Piers very well. I used to work for him. I went to his wedding. I went to his 50th birthday party. He's a guy I've known for a long time. Played golf with him. but he really seems to have kind of lost the plot on this one. He's been attacking the government for not doing enough. I mean, he would say if he was sitting here that he's been proved right, because they've now done all the things that he said they should have been doing, which other countries were doing. But I don't think that's the point.
No. What has really happened is this: the government knew that there needed to be a containment phase, a preparation phase, and then an acceleration phase. And what they've been doing is trying to delay the acceleration phase. But always remember, there's a brilliant video, by the way, on YouTube about with buckets trying to show about the NHS thing.
Yeah.
It's worth finding the NHS bucket video. Because it basically makes the point.
I've got such a low attention span. I don't think I finished it. I think I watched it halfway through, and I thought I can't be asked.
You're like, God, the ice bucket challenge has gone down.
Essentially, it makes a very simple point that if you want to manage demand within the NHS, people have to start using the NHS.
Yes.
And therefore, if you do what's happened in China, which is to shut down the streets before people have all got it, then all that happens is when you reopen the streets, the whole thing outbreaks again. And so what they needed to do, and they always said they were going to do this, they were going to wait for the acceleration phase before they shut the schools and started doing all the lockdowns, bluntly, because they want people in hospital now, not all of them to present in 2 weeks.
Right. I mean, it's still one of those things that you can't quite get your head around. I mean, I have no clue about this kind of stuff, It's just like, containing flow, trying to work out the demand and the supply and all of that. I really have no clue.
That's nice to hear, because one of the things that's been lacking about this, and one of my nominations was going to be armchair epidemiologist.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, the amount of people on my Facebook timeline are all of a sudden a virologist.
But it's like all those people during Brexit who became experts on international trade, and people would be ringing up the show, going, "Well, of course, you know what happens with the world. What do they call it? WTO rules. Everybody was an expert. I said, "What the hell are you talking about?
Like, I don't
know what WTO rules are.
No.
I'll have to ask somebody who actually is a proper expert." But not everybody on Twitter, unfortunately, believes that.
That's right.
They think that they all know absolutely everything about absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And Piers Morgan, I suppose, falls into that category now.
Well, yeah, and he's good and he's provocative, but somebody did say to him, in response to what you've just said, somebody said, when did you study your master's degree in public health administration?
Yes.
Which I think is a reasonable point. And I think for once in his life, I don't believe Piers Morgan generally goes too far.
No.
I think he asks the questions that people are not brave enough to ask.
There are those who say that he is picking on the government in a massive way because they won't give him any ministers, because for some reason Downing Street has decided not to allow ministers to go on, or at least the Prime Minister, and he's like, Boris Johnson won't go on GMB. And I think it stems supposedly from that. And I can tell you that Piers can be a little bit childish when it comes to that kind of thing. He once, when I was working at the Mirror, was so fed up with Ian Hislop, who kept writing about him in Private Eye, calling him Piers Moron, that when Ian Hislop came to Canary Wharf's Waterstones to do a book signing, he organised for a bunch of people from the Mirror to get a load of placards done, to go down to Waterstones and to stand there chanting, Ian Hislop out, until he left. And he eventually did, because that's the kind of thing he'll do.
That's very snowflakey, isn't it? That is no platforming, snowflakery left-wingery that he would complain about.
Right.
But also, Ian Hislop also claimed, I saw an interview, that Piers Morgan used to send journalists down to his house to go through his rubbish. Now, we all know that...
Well, there was a time when you could do that.
No, we all know that happened, but Hislop's problem was that he just did that every day for about 6 months, just to annoy him.
Well, that's the thing. So he does have that side to him. But listen, so we've now reached this point, Dave, where you haven't been here before. So what we basically do is we now choose the best one of each of our nominations to see whether we can get down to the final three. So why don't you pick his, I'll pick yours, and then you can pick mine. How about that?
It's democracy, right?
So you pick your favourite one of his. So do you want to just run through your three again?
You just know he's not going to pick my favourite one.
Which
so
one?
my ones were the President of China. Why don't you just admit you're not going to go for that? Right.
No, that's great.
Jeremy Vine, who works for the BBC. So why don't we just admit you're not going to go for that? Or the Conservative commentator Piers Morgan. Which one are you going to go for, Sean?
Which one are you going to
Why
pick?
did you let him pick mine?
I think it's going to be...
Because I can't pick yours because Piers is in it.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
What, you don't want him going through your bins, is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I can go through my bins if he likes. He don't think he's going to find anything interesting at all. But
that's when you start...
bottles of red wine.
Yeah. Oh, that's in the recycling.
Oh, okay. You recycle?
Yeah.
You're going to lose your audience now.
No, it's easy. I mean, the point is that I live in London, right? There's these two. This is why I know recycling is an absolute and utter waste of time, because in Sussex you have to recycle everything separately. You've got a little bag for this, a little bag for that, another bottle bank over there. In London you just tip everything into this one huge crate. crate, and it all gets taken away by the recycling police, whoever they are, and God knows what they do.
No,
they just chuck it in the Thames.
They ship off to China, don't they?
Well, they used to.
What they do is they use a centrifuge. I'm not joking.
A what?
A centrifuge.
A centrifuge.
Or whatever.
You can't say centrifuge.
Centrifuge.
There you go.
I apologize.
Hasn't got an R in it.
Anyway, it separates out all the waste. So you've got all the paper, you've got all the glass, you've got whatever. And then what they do is they send it to China and India and they stick it in a big hole and then send a letter back saying we recycled it.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
what happens.
Well, I'm sure that's absolutely true. So anyway, off you go.
Hey, look, no surprise. I'm not going to pick Xi Jinping because
Why?
there's going to be a global war with
Winnie
him
the
soon.
Pooh.
I want to be on the right side.
Well, you don't want him
There's
going
not
through your
gonna be-
bins either, to be fair.
It's not going to be Jeremy
Oh,
Vine
what a
because
surprise.
I'm going on there soon. And the third one, it's got to be Piers Morgan.
So you're going to pick Piers Morgan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was a shock.
Right. Well, I'm going to pick Richard Branson out of
Thank
yours because
you.
I think Branson needs to be on there as well.
Scum.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a bit harsh, but
I
so
think-
now
no,
you
I'd
get to
stand
pick
by it.
mine.
Now, forgive my ignorance. Remind me.
Jessica Seymour or Seymour.
I didn't know who she was, but
Right.
she sounded good.
Okay. Carol Cadwallader.
Yeah, her.
And of course, Sadiq Khan.
No, Carol Codswallop, because Carol Codswallop has had a go at me before.
So you're going to pick her?
So it's got, and she's blocked me on Twitter.
There's
Carol
no reason not
Codswallop.
to make it personal. I think that's the best way.
Totally.
All right. Okay.
She accused me of knowing my flatmates.
Shocking.
Right? and claimed that was an
to be
expose.
fair to her, that's the first thing she's got right all year.
Yeah.
You know, most of the stuff she writes is complete and utter codswallop. Right, so we've now got Carol Codswallop, we've got Richard Branson, we've got Piers Morgan. Now, what we have to do now is get rid of one of them as not as relevant as the other two.
Oh, can we just look for because of previous good work?
Yes.
Can we get rid of Piers Morgan?
I think we can, and that means he comes in at number 3, so he doesn't disappear off the
Okay.
list.
So it's Codswallop versus Branson.
Carol Codswallop versus Branson. It's got to be Carol, isn't it?
What?
Surely.
Absolutely not. I
Hey?
think it's got to be Branson.
I've got to be honest with you. Codswallop gets the Lifetime Achievement Award, but Branson's got to be this week.
All right, okay. Well, we'll go with
Now,
Branson.
Branson might score less highly in the annual
Yes.
plank,
Right.
but I think this week,
This week, I think
he
Let's
does
put
win
it,
it.
let's put it
probably
this
right.
way. Someone worked out that in the 3 months he was asking his staff to take
Yeah.
unpaid leave,
Yeah.
he would make 9.9 million on interest alone.
Really?
So he could just send that over to his staff.
Although, let's be clear, they're saying he's worth 4.1 billion. That's based on a valuation of Virgin
Well, yeah.
Airways, which let's be clear,
Yeah.
at the moment is looking at best shaking.
Yeah,
But
it's,
he
not-
owns- he
it's
owns
looking
every-
like you pick up one of the planes for a couple of quid.
Yeah, he also didn't he own a rail company? I mean, that can't be doing
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
He
also
owns-
look. Richard Branson's 4.1 billion. He's not worth that
This
at the
is
moment,
his
but
kind
he
of
is a
Gerald.
plank.
This is his Gerald Ratner moment, isn't it?
Yes.
Look, he owns
Yeah,
over
yeah.
200 companies like Virgin, the Virgin Trains. I mean, I think
Virgin Trains, which lots of people are using at the moment.
Right.
Virgin Airways, which lots
Branson
of people.
Pickle. He's definitely got something in that. So, you know, and the amount of people
Oh,
stockpiling.
come on. You all know, because also we've got to take account. I know you don't admit this, but you do take account of what the viewers think.
Of course.
And the viewers think Richard Branson.
Yes,
don't
all
they?
right. Listen, I'm going with you.
Thank
I am absolutely and utterly convinced that Richard Branson is the plank of the week. We'll be back next week with more plankery.